hear me now? This is Kia Bamba, so we run the whole of Switzerland and the whole of Europe, and we run the whole of etc, etc. You don't know, devil shaman says so, me I back them to the max. And it's like some idiot so want to stop them from get a piece of the pie. Oh, I'm to no disrespect, could go and die. Hear me now? Kia Bamba, them up dubs, we play fast, I play slow, them up flows. Like nobody knows, them kill soul, a sound clash and dance all. And mash up stage shows, but some guys don't recognize, I realize.
Welcome to Only Friends on a Power Day, your one-stop spot for all things snow, mountain and travel. Get all you need to know about epic destinations, inspiring stories from local legends all around the globe, as well as creators, entrepreneurs, brands, owners and more. We are here to talk about what's hot, what's changing the game and what's incoming. Come along for the ride, froth out and let's have fun doing it. Today, I have New Zealand royalty, the man himself, Will Jackaways. How are you, Will?
Yeah, hi Austin. Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, I don't know about royalty, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. Yeah,
mate, I think that you're understating yourself. I think that, to be honest, as far as like big international names that came out of New Zealand from the snowboarding world, I think, in my opinion, you're probably right up the top. Obviously, you know, there's a next generation coming through and you're a family man now and doing your thing. But, you know, as I said in my post, I had the opportunity to shred with you one day when we were in Niseko and you had your little snowshoes on and you were a full mountain goat, stomped everything, climbed up and down, as you said, doing your job. It was really good to see. And I also tried to give it a nudge and got smoked a few times, but mate, you are a beast and it was really good to see you do your thing.
Thank you. Yeah, that's nice to be able to recall that moment. I remember the day quite vividly and fondly myself. So and then, you know, like I've spent a lot of time in Japan over the years and that day was memorable for me also. So it's nice that we can share that moment, bro. So yeah, thank you for coming with me.
That zone was super epic and no one had been there and it was awesome to watch you just mountain goat up after every hit, stomp everything. Like I thought I'd stomped a couple but ended up tomahawking a couple of times. So it was really amazing to watch you do your thing, mate.
Thank you.
I guess, you know, let's like just get on, like, how did you end up getting into snowboarding? You're obviously living in Wanaka now. How did it all start for Mr. Jackaways?
So I moved to Wanaka in the very late 80s, like early 90s. So I've been here for just over 35 years now. We originally moved from Wellington. Mum and Dad come from a education background, so they're both school teachers by trade, and they're actually phys ed teachers. So we moved here because Dad took an opportunity to work at the school, the high school here, which was a very small school back then. And so we moved down when I was would be 5, I think, around then. And just because the town offers such a good outdoor lifestyle, as it still does now, we just picked up skiing when we were young because Mum and Dad were obviously phys ed teachers and keen outdoor enthusiasts. So they got us up the mountain at a pretty early stage, like most kids that grow up in Wanaka have the opportunity to do. So I skied from a pretty young age. And then probably when I hit my sort of like early teenage years, I was playing a lot of sport like rugby, cricket, all of that stuff, tennis, anything basically. We're massive sports geeks in the house. But my older brother at the time, who I've got an older brother, TJ, he started to get into skateboarding and he would have been maybe 13 or something. So naturally, being his younger brother, I was keen to get into skateboarding as well, like most siblings. Yeah. Nah, not even, man. Just more like skating around the driveway and going to the school because Mum and Dad obviously worked at the school, so we'd skate after the school closed. And he was a really good skateboarder, still is a good skateboarder. And so that transition basically went from learning to skateboard to all of a sudden being like, shit, maybe I should stand sideways on the mountain because it sort of emulates the same motion, you know.
Yep.
So I remember my first day at Cadrona with him. He'd already snowboarded for a season before I gave it a go. And he's a bit of a natural sportsman, so he picked it up quite quick. And the first day he was like, "Yo, this is how you do it. Just keep up and shut up. Don't say anything." And he kind of just left me for dead on the mountain. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Like anyone starting, you know, that first day is just a nightmare pretty much. You're catching your edge, you're falling over, you're not really liking it. So I persevered for quite a while and slowly developed my skills enough to link turns. Meanwhile, he was already flatting around the mountain doing his thing. And I think like I was playing rugby also at the time, and my rugby coach said, you know, like you've got to kind of be around more, come to practice. And in the weekends, I was more keen to get up the mountain because snowboarding was, you know, it was obviously more of a fun and enjoyable hobby than running around a footy paddock, sort of getting scragged around by big people.
Yeah.
So I remember at the time he was like, "You're gonna have to choose. You know, you want to be a part of this rugby team, or you're gonna kind of gallivant up the mountain and do your kind of snowboard thing." And I was like, "Well, fuck, it's a bit of a no-brainer for me. Like, I wasn't getting any bigger, and rugby was starting to hurt. So I said, "Oh, here's my rugby shirt back, and I'll catch you later," type thing.
Yeah. Because
Yeah, that's cool.
you're quite a tall fella for a snowboarder, but
I am. Yeah.
yeah, I guess you would have had to put in a lot of work to fill out to play
But
rugby.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I actually wasn't that tall most of my childhood, even growing up. I had like a late growth spurt, which is quite weird for a teenage boy. I was actually quite short going through sort of 15 around there. And once I hit like around 16, I just started like shooting up. So it probably coincided quite well with rugby because, you know, when you're kind of leaner and that, you get a bit hurt more on the field. So yeah, no, I'm 6'1", and like it's quite rare as a snowboarder. Like generally, snowboarders are more like compact and have a lower center of gravity, so it makes us kind of stand out a little bit more. And yeah, man, no, I don't. My daughter's a bit like that now. She's 10, and she's got my kind of build and height, and it's funny to see the gene, you know, kind of work its way in through to her. So, yeah, sorry, bro, I've segued a bit there. Yeah, got into snowboarding through skateboarding, my parents, my brother, and then, living in Wanaka, it was just so easy to shoot up the resort. And I don't know, I picked it up because it was something I really enjoyed doing.
Yeah, so I guess you started skiing, and so you kind of had that foredge
Correct.
basis, and then transitioned to
transitioned.
snowboarded and
That's
fell in love.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
Did you like was park and everything like soon on your cards, or were you more interested in skiing like the mountain and power? Like, how did it all evolve for you?
Yeah, no, it's a good question, man. Back in the like mid '90s, later '90s, when I picked up a snowboard and started getting into it, park was pretty non-existent, to be completely honest. It was more about the half pipes, like especially growing up at Cadrona. I think maybe in the late '90s or certainly in the mid 2000s, I think at one stage they had 4 half pipes that you could access from the bottom of their resorts. Primarily speaking, I grew up like riding half pipe because that's what my brother did, that's what his friends did, and that's what the people did that I looked up to at the time.
The skateboarding background.
Exactly, bro, like transition and that whole like feeling of like riding a tranny. So I really was pretty grateful to learn how to ride a half pipe from a young age because, you know, it's not something that everybody gets the opportunity to even do now. Like a lot of resorts don't even have a half pipe, and like for a period there, half pipe riding was almost, you know, got a little bit organically faded out because the park was so much more appealing for the young people. So yeah, I did. Yeah, park riding wasn't something I really rode. I did, you know, growing up here, I had Treble Cone as well. That was on my other doorstep, and that's a very popular free riding resort. So I learned to sort of combine that with my half pipe riding into like riding the whole mountain, and also being able to incorporate, you know, edge control and using that kind of responsive turning. So yeah, man, that's a good question. I didn't really get into the park till quite a lot later on in my journey, I guess. Yeah.
And so on that, did you ever like compete in park or pipe comps? Or
Most certainly, bro. So one of the first ones that really rings a bell were the New Zealand Nationals. So they were like a huge milestone event in New Zealand. They were like ahead of their time. They were like raw as like grassroots. Everyone would come from all over New Zealand descend on Wanaka for like a week of carnage, pretty much. And as a youngster, like a late teenager, the Nationals was like the pinnacle event that you'd look forward to every year. It was a massive gathering of like New Zealand's best, at the times. I did slope style. Border cross was actually another one that was really popular. Like Cadrona had a really good border cross course. It still has a border cross course now. So like I competed in that, funnily enough, for quite a few years leading into, transitioning into the park. So yeah, the Nationals far out. They had an influence on my upbringing and my career, as they would have for any snowboarder in New Zealand at the time. Idolizing some of the guys you looked up to and seeing them compete, and then obviously that whole camaraderie within all the other athletes and the aftermatch functions, we'll call them. They were just as notorious as the snowboarding. So, yeah, man, it's funny you asked. I don't even think about it now, but like border cross and all those, they used to have dual slalom. That was an event that they had in the Nationals. So it was like, yeah, this double gated snowboarding, like timed going down together. And yeah, it was just such a wild time to be a part of a pretty unique snowboarding industry. So yeah.
and from there, did you on the like
Level.
the top of the level, were you
Yeah, that's a
wanting
good
to
question.
go to New Zealand and compete, or did you decide that you just wanted to free ride?
No, I did. No, I was like any young snowboarder aspiring to like have a nudge at something. We all have to cut our teeth in competitions from an early age. Like that was the platform back then. That was the place to get noticed and to like network and to meet people and to ride for a brand. So yeah, 100%. I think the first thing that really changed it for me was I won the big air as a junior. I think I was 16, and they built this big air at Cadrona, and they had the big side, which was pretty big for back then, and then a smaller side, which was still quite big for back then. And I won that, and won like, I can't remember what it was. It might have even been a sponsorship or a few $100s. And mum and dad thought it was pretty funny, and I also had a bit of a laugh. I didn't really think too much of it or take it too seriously at the time. And then like a couple of months later, I got an email from the New Zealand Snowboarding Association, which was a collective of people back then that would help run the events and sort of stand as like a committee. And they'd mentioned that I'd been selected to compete for the junior New Zealand team in the World Championships, which were being held in the Trois Vallées, which is over in France. And I was 16 maybe at the time, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't I was still riding an old rickety old board, and I was like, didn't even think like it was even like, no, I thought it might have been a prank or something. And mum and dad were like, far out, maybe you can give this thing a bit of a go. So we fundraised, in the coming months, and then sure enough, a dozen of us plus coaches jumped on a plane and went over to France, and we competed for New Zealand. And that was like probably a little bit of a door opening moment to be like, wearing a uniform and going to these opening ceremonies and like meeting all these other athletes from around the world that were, some of them were snowboarding professionally at the time. And like, I still remember like taking the bus with like some of these big names, and like they were people that I remember seeing in the mags and looking up to at that particular time. And here we were like hanging out in the flesh with them, riding with them, going to the after parties with them. And that was a huge moment for sure, bro. Just the young little kid that was like, picking it up as a hobby, all of a sudden was competing with, people like Danny Cass and all that I looked up to at the time, who were like, like pretty much rock stars of snowboarding. So yeah, pretty cool.
That's super awesome, mate. And
Thanks.
from there, did you kind of continue down that competition path, or did you feel that you wanted
to branch out? No, I was still pretty young at that time, and after we got back from France, I think I was approached by a couple of different companies, to start an organic endorsement, and I didn't know anything about that sort of stuff. So naturally, when you're a up and coming budding snowboarder and somebody's offering to, help you travel the world and give you some outerwear and do all that, it was a hugely exciting opportunity. One of my first sponsors actually was a company called Pulsate, which was a mobile phone company in New Zealand. It later transitioned into Boost Mobile,
Yep.
and they came to New Zealand with a pretty cool, bunch of resources and some marketing ideas, and they put like quite a few of us on the team. And I remember mum
Yeah,
and dad.
they sponsor WSL now, right?
They do, bro. Yeah,
They've stayed on that action sports kind of pathway, and
correct.
yeah, Boost
Yeah.
Mobile is cool. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, 100%. And I admire those companies for giving back to their athletes and being involved for the right reasons. I was just like I said, I was a young 16-year-old. I was still sort of, obviously I was still at school, but I had part-time work after school, and I worked my ass off to try and get money together to keep living the lifestyle or the dream that I was trying to pursue. So when Pulsate offered me, like a financial contract with a phone, with unlimited minutes and all that, I couldn't believe it, to be honest. I had to get mum and dad to sort of read over the contract, so to speak, and make sure I was actually like, getting looked
Make sure
after.
you knew what you were signing. That's awesome,
Yeah,
mate.
exactly, bro.
And I guess that
When
was
you're
kind of like
16,
a really good time back then in Australia and New Zealand, where snowboarders were really getting recognised and getting sponsored and getting paid. I feel like that's probably after COVID and all the rest of it, not
so much coming up anymore.
yeah, and yeah, mate, and I think you really you were definitely, right up there with the big names coming up. And I guess from the competition, if you tell us a bit more what happened with all of that, I guess you kind of more transitioned into filming as you got older, but
Yeah.
tell us how it all happened.
Yeah, no, man. I guess after I returned home, I probably did realize, in a nice way, that maybe it was something that I was half decent at for once, because I was pretty ungo at most things I touched back then. Mum and dad were like pretty supportive, as two school teachers from humble beginnings and a pretty like modest upbringing. It was pretty left field for them to see one of their sons wanting to pursue a professional, sporting career through a sport that wasn't even really professional at the time in New Zealand. So yeah, it's funny. I got selected the following year to go back to the Junior World Champs. So I would have been maybe 17 or the following year, and that was in Italy. It's actually was at the same place where the Winter Olympics are about to kick off. So we
Yep.
did quite well in that event as a team, and I think I placed it wasn't that good. I might have made the top 10 and something, which was a pretty big deal for an athlete from New Zealand. And I was living at the time, actually, I decided to do my first season overseas. I'd worked in a restaurant at night here to get the money together. And my brother had been overseas the year before, and he came back raving about this place called Squaw Valley, which is in Lake Tahoe. He'd been over and stayed with some friends, and he was like, it's the craziest, coolest place. From that moment, I was like, man, I'm going to work as a dish pig, go to school, take my sponsorship money and go to Squaw. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I didn't know many people whatsoever. So I went to Squaw for 2 months, January, February, and then I flew over to Italy and met the team over there. We competed. After the event finished, I ended up staying on with some other of the Kiwi athletes, and we travelled to Meyerhofen in the Zillertal Valley, and we also went on to Kitzsteinhorn and Kaprin there, and I competed in Meyerhofen in a British Open snowboarding event, super left field, didn't think anything of it. It was a half-pipe event, and I ended up winning it. It was in the open men category as well, and I just come from the Junior World Champs where confidence was quite high, and I was competing against some of these Brits and pretty well-known Euro riders, and I think I won 2,000 or 3,000 euros after the event. And I couldn't believe it, I wasn't even really taking it seriously. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, I was getting called up onto this stage in the middle of some bar in downtown Marhofen to get this big novelty check.
Did you have a big night, mate? Or did
it was
you?
massive, yeah. And yeah, this is a podcast for all ages, eh? So I won't go into that too much. But yeah, coming back from that trip and after spending more time in Europe, it sort of became a little bit more apparent that that I could make this a job, and like I could turn it into a little bit of a career. I was still young. Sorry, the kids are home.
Yeah, you're right, man.
And then from that moment, I was organically sort of picked up by a few other brands. I rode for Burton here in New Zealand because they were a really well established company with good people behind them. And then a really good friend of mine also ended up being my teammate for a long time. Brendan Robbins was like, "Why don't you come and ride for Volcom? I'm riding for them. They're like a streetwear company based out of America, but an Aussie, and they do outerwear, and I'll put the good word in. And next thing you know, I'm sort of getting towed into this pretty cool setup riding for those guys. A lot of their staff and people I dealt with in Aussie like really looked after me, took good care of me, and sort of gave me that introduction into what professional snowboarding was going to be like. Obviously, it was a pretty big jump to make to decide to ride for this brand that I looked up to Volcom and its athletes and what the brand stood for at the time. So it was an honor to be a part of the team, and especially to get recommended by somebody as well known as Q was a massive, a milestone, I guess. So from there, it was like, well, I was able to get a proper salary contract where I was getting paid pretty well, and I had like an incentive program also that enabled me to get numerated for any type of media coverage that came out, as well as like obviously a travel allocated budget. So it all happened quite quick. I think I was still like 20 maybe when I was like, right, I better get an accountant and figure this out. And I wasn't running myself as a business so much back then, but it all kind of started to evolve, that it was like, right, I don't need to work in the kitchen anymore, and I can go and jet over to this place if someone wants me, type thing. So yeah, bro, sorry if I'm going on a little bit.
No, no.
You just jump in.
It's so good to hear, dude. You're not going on at all. It's
okay.
It's bloody awesome because I haven't heard your whole story, so
Cool.
It's really good to hear. Like, I obviously knew that you were, as I said, like you were one of the biggest names to ever come out of New Zealand, but I wasn't sure about how your origins kind of started and whether you were really into comp or you just, because by the time I started to get to know you, you more started free skiing and doing your own videos and stuff. So I kind of gathered that you'd gone down that path, but it's really good to hear it from the horse's mouth, obviously.
Thanks, Ozzy. Yeah, it wasn't a deliberate movement. Like when you're in your early 20s and you're, fortunate enough to be getting paid to snowboard, the most normal path that you follow would be a competitive path, because like I mentioned before, those were the events that paid, and that was where you could get recognized, and those were the events where the sort of the industry were watching. I did do that for a few years. I continued to go back to Lake Tahoe because I fell in love with the place. And when I was a teenager growing up, we had a couple of Japanese exchange students that stayed with us as a way of like billeting them out, and they would ski and whatever. So from a young age, I was naturally pretty fascinated with Japan as well. So I went and did my first season over there. It would have been very early 2000s, I think. And I was like just a naive Kiwi, and a friend of mine had told me about Hokkaido and said, "Oh, look, there's a few other Kiwis kicking around. You might be able to like bounce over there and like go and help someone out, and they might be able to give you a place to stay and all that." So, I sort of started to branch away from the competitive side of snowboarding because I started to fall in love with traveling and seeing all these beautiful countries. And I was still doing my media stuff at the time, like I was linking up with filmers and tying in with photographers and starting to kind of merge into that side of snowboarding more. And that's something that I like look back at now, and I'm incredibly grateful that I was able to see that, and also have my supporting sponsors support me in that, because it wasn't a typical route for sponsors to support. They wanted a magazine cover, or they wanted to see somebody on the top of the podium. They didn't necessarily want a little 2-minute video clip on a CD at the end of a winter. So it was cool, man. Yeah, I fell in love with Japan straight away. Like I still traveled to Canada, British Columbia, all throughout America, Europe, But for some reason, Japan just had the pool every year, especially early season. I think I would go there from about late December till about the start of February, and I would purely base in Hokkaido and travel around there. Whilst I've been fortunate enough to spend a lot of time in the mainland of Japan, which I am really fond of and love as well. I just got drawn back to Hokkaido every year basically because of the dry snow, and the conditions were just so consistently enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
could relate
you
to that.
definitely looked at home there when I had the opportunity to shred with you, mate. And
Thank you.
yeah, I guess it is a special place, and it's generally pretty consistent with good conditions. And
Yeah,
if you like, what the pinnacle of skiing or snowboarding is always shred and power.
yeah,
If
for a lot of us, yeah,
if you want to do that, then Japan's probably going to provide it. So
yeah, man,
makes sense, mate.
it does. Yeah,
So, mate, I just wanted to quickly get personal.
sure. Yeah, yeah,
I obviously lived with your sister Francie and worked with her at
yeah.
Rhythm. Absolute legend, super fit, hard worker, one of the nicest humans that I've ever met. And, like she'd be getting up before work and going for runs, and
Yeah,
she
crazy.
very determined, but just super calm, super nice, a real awesome human. She got cancer and has passed away, which was a massive shock to all the people who knew her. And I can't imagine what that was like for you and your family and Craig Baker, who was her partner at the time. How did you and your family cope with that devastating situation with someone who was the last person that you'd think that would happen to?
Yeah, no, that is a good question. Thank you for acknowledging her firstly, and thank you for, giving me the opportunity to mention her. It's tough to touch on sometimes because it's obviously still pretty real, and naturally it's incredibly close to home. So yeah, man, it was a really tough time for the whole family, obviously. Craig and all her close friends. When somebody becomes unwell like that, it is something that nobody really expects to happen, and there's no rule book or guidebook as to how to grasp something like that. Like you said, man, she was fit, young, active, and an incredible person. Yeah, a really tough card to have been dealt. Yeah, yeah, we struggled, to be brutally honest. Like when somebody like that leaves this earth that's had such an impact, it's hard to grasp. It's tough for us all. Mum and dad obviously had taken it incredibly hard. Saying goodbye to their daughter is not something that anyone should have to go through.
Yeah, mate. I'd just like to say that she was like one of the nicest, most lovely human beings. And yeah, like you just wouldn't expect someone like that to get sick because she was so
Yeah,
awesome and she was a lovely person. And I think that's what hurt people so much as well, even who had only just come in contact with her, is
yeah,
that because she was such a lovely, awesome human, it was like, why? Like,
yeah. Oh,
like she was getting up before work and going for runs. Like she was like, she was just an awesome, lovely human, much like yourself, mate. And
thank you.
sorry to upset you, but
No,
I just wanted to say, like,
no, it's
Francie was
fine. Yeah,
absolute
no, it's
legend,
fine.
and I lived with her for 6 months, and because she was such a lovely human, it hit me for six because she was such a nice person and such an awesome human that
Yeah.
it was really sad. But yeah, like I just wanted to acknowledge that. Yeah, your sister was a legend. You're a legend. You guys are obviously really nice people, and I'm really sorry that you and your family had to go through that, mate.
Thanks, Austin. Yeah, no, I'll pass that on obviously to mum and dad. Yeah, it was an incredibly tough time, it's brought us a lot closer as a family together. Not that we were ever apart as in terms of that, But I mean, yeah, it's a tough time. Everyone's looking for answers and trying to figure out, why exactly stuff like this does happen. And it's tough. There's so many unanswers with a sickness and a disease like that. So it's quite confusing, but it's also, pretty confronting as well when you have to go through that, as a unit. Yeah, mum and dad, like obviously I am incredibly proud of them and everything they've done and how they've held themselves through this whole process with grief and that. I still see them every week. They're amazing grandparents to my kids as well as my brother and sister-in-law's kids. So to see them come through adversity with what they bring and how they hold themselves makes me incredibly proud to be their son. So thank you for acknowledging her and like I mentioned, man, like she had such a bond with so many people on this earth. So I feel grateful that we were able to share her with such lovely people like yourselves, and that she was able to see the world obviously before she departed. And like with her not being here, it's tough. Yeah, like I think about her every day. We actually gather as a wider family every couple of years and do a memorial bike trip for her. And little things like that are a really nice way to not only remember her, but just to stay tight as a unit. And I think that's pretty important when you go through a loss like that, is to celebrate someone's life and to also remember those cool people that you still currently have around you. So yeah, thank you again.
Nah, yeah, mate. All love there. Thanks for being real and talking about it. And I did
That's
also just want to recognise what a fucking legend she was, because
yeah,
she was a really
thank you.
good human. And yeah, I guess the good ones unfortunately get taken from us.
That's right, bro.
Um,
Yeah, she must have, her powers must have been needed somewhere else. I don't
yeah,
reckon. Yeah.
she was one of the best, mate. So on to more snowboarding stuff. After the competition life, what happened next? I guess obviously you got more into filming, and Japan was your love. Like, what happened next?
Yeah, so that's a good question, man. I think like from that initial stage of when I started to travel, especially to some of those places where I wasn't focusing on going to somewhere for a contest, I was like linking up with people who were in the industry that were like media related, like photographers, filmers, people that were working with brands that I was endorsing. It kind of opened up a whole different avenue. Like I was still out there doing my job, but I didn't have to focus on competing and performing when the conditions weren't ideal. So
Yeah,
it became apparent, like, yeah, sorry, it became apparent pretty earlier on that like I enjoyed free riding. I knew how to somewhat present myself in front of a camera, and I wasn't afraid of putting in hard work. And around that sort of time, like, potentially the internet was starting to have an impact on the industry, and people were able to, put out imagery and digital footage of themselves, which sponsors held in great value. So in turn, that kind of changed the dynamic for people like myself, where we could go out and work and give these sponsors the coverage they were wanting, not necessarily through a competitive pathway, but by giving them some brand exposure. And I think at the time that was just as valuable, if not more, than standing on a podium for a second by having their brand plastered all over the internet. So I was quite grateful, like it sort of changed. Like my contract with quite a few brands was able to be tweaked that I could benefit by living the life I wanted to do, which was to travel and to film and to shoot imagery. And to be perfectly honest, like I was loving every minute of it. Touched on, bro, I've been to more or less every continent on this earth to snowboard professionally, and some of the places I've been, I would never thought in a million years I'd get to travel when I was a youngster. So it's been pretty cool, and a lot of that has come through like hard work, making the right decisions, and naturally just linking up with the right people who I enjoy being around.
is there anything or anyone that you filmed with or did stuff with that really stands out as like a amazing memory or a standout? Is there someone that you've worked
Yeah,
with
man.
a
Yeah,
standout?
yeah. 100%. Yeah, like It's so hard to narrow something like that down because I've been fortunate enough to have a pretty long career, and during that time, there's always going to be moments that stick in your mind. I think, like, naturally, when you're doing something that you love and you get to enjoy that with other people who are doing the same, or doing it with people that you look up to, that's like the pinnacle for me. So, yeah, like I was able to share some pretty cool helicopter rides in Alaska and here in New Zealand with like athletes that I really enjoyed, and then obviously, I rode and hiked all around Japan and snowmobiled in the US and Canada with some of the amazing athletes and guys that I looked up to. So it's tough to narrow down like a couple, but like, people like Brian Aguchi and Jackson Hole, like have had a massive impact. Gigi Roof from Austria, like he's someone I looked up to my whole life. And then guys that are like closer to home, some of the Kiwi guys that I like grew up idolizing and like watching them work and like see how they went about it when they were applying their trade was hugely inspiring. So like all of those guys, and then obviously a bit later on when I was like getting a bit older and linking up with like guys that are around my sort of age, then yeah, I can't really answer it. My whole career has been pretty inspiring, to be honest, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Very, very well said, mate. I
Thanks.
couldn't imagine.
It's hard to narrow down.
Yeah, hard to narrow down. But you've had a lot of like. I think you're probably, as a Kiwi, probably been in a lot of pretty cool movie parts and kind of represented the southern hemisphere pretty well. And as you said, like Alaska trips and all the rest of it, you were
Yeah.
really, standing up there as the southern hemisphere guy at a while and really, putting your foot forward to be one of the best of the world, and everyone was super stoked to see you do it. So
Thank you.
props to you, mate.
No, that's nice of you to acknowledge. Like like I never thought about myself as being like that. I was just incredibly grateful to be doing what I was doing at the particular time. Like, yeah, like I was making a living out of it, and I was able to travel the world doing what I was loving. So like, it was more just like an incredible journey. I feel like, whilst you touched on it, there were a handful of other notable people to mention. Like there were some amazing athletes that came out of Australia that were paving that way when I was trying to go as well. Like I think of like Ryan Teeney and Robbie
Yep.
Walker and like Clint Allen. Like all those guys were incredibly inspiring. Like they were out there filming, working hard, like getting amazing coverage. So like Kiwis, yeah, we did okay, but like the Aussies did really well too, man. You guys had some incredible talent out there, as you still do now. So like, it wasn't so much about me being out on a platform. I was more trying to be inspired by some of the other guys that I was looking up to, and that included those Aussies that I just mentioned. Yeah, plus more.
You're too humble, Will.
Oh, it's all good, bro. I'm just telling the truth. Yeah. Can you see me, or is it starting to get dark? I'll put the light on there. Yeah. There you
Mate,
go. Sorry, I've got heaps of time, so don't feel like you need to cut us off, or if you need to go.
no. I think I'm just trying to work out what else we could talk about. I guess like what
Well, you're the one interviewing me, bro, so you figure it out.
so what's going on now, mate? You've obviously got a couple of kids, you're working, you've kind of stepped back a bit from the whole professional stuff. Still in Wanaka. It sounds like you're still prioritizing snowboarding when you can.
Yeah,
Are you still throwing down in the park or getting after some power? What's going on?
Yeah, no, so I am. I'm still living in Wanaka with my family. Actually, I live in Luggett, which is a small community about 5 minutes drive south of Wanaka. We bought a house out here about 10 or 11 years ago, when I started to realize Wanaka would be a good place to keep the roots and to bring up a family. Yeah, so, I was still pretty grateful to still be snowboarding professionally even when we bought the house, right up until I sort of organically wanted to step back in my terms. I still really enjoyed what I was doing, but, when you have a couple of young kids and you're away overseas for long periods, like sometimes your priorities move around in regards to that, and being around the house more and like being home for birthdays and like little school trips and stuff like that. Something that you can't really put a price on, whatever job you're doing. So yeah, we love it, bro. Like Wanaka's hugely changing. It's a massively desirable part of New Zealand for people to now live and to move and work in. So the town itself is going through some pretty big developmental changes in terms of its capacity with growth and infrastructure and that, but it's still an incredible part of the world, and more importantly, it's a great place to bring up young children. So we're still involved in the mountains. Abby and I and the kids are still incredibly fortunate to still be ambassadors for Cadrona and Volcom. So we're still up there promoting that. I still organically endorse Volcom and a few other handful of companies that have had my back for my whole career pretty much. So whilst I'm not snowboarding professionally anymore, we're still involved in the community and the mountain, which is something that will continue to be a part of moving forward because it's just something we love and we're grateful to do. In terms of my work, I actually started my own metal roofing company about 4 or 5 years ago. I worked for a guy here helping him out and then slowly developed the skills to pick it up myself. And then a few years ago, probably 3, I was like, bugger it, I'm going to go out by myself. With Abby's support as my surveyor and accountant, we've got our own company here that's starting to do really well because, as you know, everybody needs a roof and metal cladding. So yeah, can't keep up work-wise. We're sometimes I work in the weekend and it's busy times, bro. But we're grateful, we're finding that balance between having lots of work on and also,
I sent a message that you sent me to another guy that I recently interviewed, and I think you turned around to me and said, family, shredding, and a bit of work in between. And my mate turned around and said, I really like the way that he laid that out, as in like his priorities, like family, shredding, and work. And obviously, we all need to get paid, but it sounds like
man.
you've got your priorities right, mate. And
thanks, Ozzy.
it's awesome to hear that you still getting love from the people that you promoted for so long. And yeah, do you have any aspiring trips or anywhere you want to go soon? If you could leave the family behind, like back to Alaska, or is there anything like that you want to tick off the list still, mate?
100%, bro. Yeah, we want to bring our kids up to see the world and to be open-minded to everyone's culture and to be down to earth like that. So most definitely traveling is pretty high on the priority list for us as a family. And having said that, the business is doing quite well here as well. So we're kind of grasping the transition between having a crack at it and also looking forward to the future as well. We actually just built ourselves a new house above our existing house down below. So I'm sitting in the office right now, which is pretty flash for us. I never thought we'd have an office in our house. It sounds very, very formal, and it's a nice place to like close the slider and like not switch off. It's cool to be able to have all our admin, and it's like a bit of a library. We didn't want that transitioning into the living room so much. So yeah, we are. The kids are pretty well geographically in tune. They want to go everywhere. We have thrown around the idea, bro, of going to Japan this year. We're sitting on the fence right now, and we're obviously pretty keen to go to Europe at some stage to visit family and as well as North America. 100%, bro. Yeah, we work hard here, but we also want to treat ourselves and enjoy our life and to, more importantly, show the kids how the rest of the world lives.
Epic, mate. Yeah, mate, I think that's about it. As I said, I just want to give another shout out to your amazing sister. You and her are both really amazing, nice people. And I was stoked to get the opportunity to have a day shredding with you, and that you jumped on this to have a chat, mate. An absolute legend. When I come to Wanaka, I will hit you up for a beer, and maybe next winter for a shred as well. Thank you for
I love that very much.
Your time, legend. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up and have a chat with you, mate. Cheers. You're a lord.
Hey, thank you. No, it's been my pleasure, and thank you for having us on the show, bro. It's cool to see you branching into something cool, and to see you bringing your family up in Aussie, and also living a healthy, cool lifestyle. So I take my hat off to you and Alicia as well. That's rad. Good on you guys.
Thanks, legend. I'll press stop on record and then we
Yep.
can have a chat.
Yeah, all good, Aussie. Yeah, do that.
If I double it and tune up a buy food fi feed them family, that's no lie. Any idiot little sound try fi test them, I go die. Them not give up. Look how long them a wait. A full time now they fi get a slice of the cake. No sound fix because them bust through the gate. Through them play a good tune and this a sound the people rate. Them we mash you up. All over the UK, America and JA. People want Kia Bamba in a dance. Them no business a oh could a friend or foe. Before them play them want them advance. Now go sell up them soul for no diamond and gold. House fancy clothes and car. Kia Bamba sound, you know them are the champion. Micah and Killer be a born stars. Them have tunes and have dubs and have flows like nobody knows. Them kill sound, a sound clash and dancer.